I thought I was just helping out. 4 nights in a quiet house, feeding her dog, watering her plants. That's all it was supposed to be. But the moment I saw the list she left me, with rules written in her perfect handwriting, something shifted. It wasn't just about the dog anymore. Not when she looked at me like that. Not when her instructions started sounding more like commands. And by the time she whispered, "Good girl," I knew I'd do anything she told me to. I wasn't expecting her to still be there. The plan was simple. My best friend Jess was heading out of town with her dad for the week, and her mom, Marina, was supposed to leave for a business trip the morning after. All I had to do was stay over for a few nights, water the plants, walk their old Labrador, Benny, and keep the house from looking abandoned. Jess had begged me, saying, "You practically live here anyway. My mom trusts you more than anyone." But when I arrived, a bag slung over my shoulder, Marina was standing at the kitchen counter in a slate gray wrap dress, sipping coffee and scrolling through her tablet like she belonged in a designer magazine ad. "You're early," she said, not looking up. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound as startled as I felt. "Sorry, Jess told me you'd already be gone." She finally looked at me then, and for a split second, something unreadable flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or amusement. "Change of plans," she said. "My flight's tomorrow morning now. Hope you don't mind sharing the space for a night." No, of course not. I told myself to relax. I'd known Marina for years. She was always polite, always graceful, always a little intense. Not strict, just controlled. Everything about her was measured. Her words, her tone, her posture. Even her perfume, something soft and expensive, seemed like it knew exactly how far to reach without ever overstepping. She showed me to the guest room like she was giving a private tour of an art gallery. "You remember this room, right? It's yours for the week. Bathrooms across the hall. Towels are in the closet. Benny's leash is by the front door." "Thanks, Marina." She turned to leave, then paused. "You can call me Marina while Jess isn't around. Ms. Callahan sounds a bit too school fundraiser." I smiled, a little awkwardly. "Okay, Marina." She glanced back over her shoulder, lips curling slightly. "Good girl." I stood there for a beat too long after she left, heart skipping for reasons I didn't fully understand. It was just a thank you, just a compliment, and yet something about the way she said it made my skin flush and my chest tighten. I shook it off and unpacked. That evening was quiet. Jess texted to say they'd landed safely, and I took Benny for a short walk before dinner. Marina was already halfway through a glass of wine when I came back in, barefoot in a soft silk robe, hair pinned loosely. She offered me a glass. "Just one, if you're not driving." And we sat in the living room, exchanging light conversation about school, her work, and the book I noticed sitting on the coffee table. She had a way of speaking that made everything sound deliberate. She didn't fill silences with fluff. Every glance, every word carried intention, and yet she never made me feel unwelcome. Just watched, measured, like she was reading a page I didn't know I'd left open. I caught myself studying her fingers as they wrapped around the wine glass, long, elegant, with pale pink polish. The robe she wore had fallen slightly off one shoulder, revealing smooth skin and the strap of something black and lacy underneath. She noticed me looking. "You're very observant," she said, sipping slowly. I blinked. "Sorry, I didn't mean to stare." Her smile deepened just enough to be something else. "You'll be fine here this week. Just follow the rules I left on the fridge and Benny will tell you if you miss anything. He's very vocal about breakfast time." I laughed, relieved for the change in tone. "Noted. Oh, and one more thing." She stood, tightening the sash on her robe as she walked past me. "Try not to sneak treats to him. He knows how to beg, but he doesn't need encouragement." I raised my hands. "No treats. Got it." She paused at the foot of the stairs, looking down at me. "You're very obedient, aren't you?" The question hit harder than I expected. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't even know what she meant. She didn't wait for a response. "Good night, Riley." "Good night," I echoed, trying not to sound breathless. That night I lay in bed wide awake, the house still and quiet around me. Benny snored softly in his bed at the foot of mine, but I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed everything. Her voice, the glint in her eye, the gentle dominance in the way she moved through her space. I came to watch her dog, but even on the first night, I knew something else was happening, and it had very little to do with Benny. The list was written in neat, precise handwriting. Blue ink on ivory stationery, taped to the fridge like it belonged there permanently. Instructions for Benny Mu+ house, the header read, followed by a bullet-pointed breakdown. Walking times, feeding schedule, thermostat settings, acceptable snacks, carrot slices only, no exceptions, and a gentle reminder to water the garden every 3rd day. It was thorough, structured, a little over the top for a 4-day absence, maybe. But something about it made my heart race. Maybe it was the way she signed it at the bottom, almost playfully. Thanks for being reliable. I like that about you, M. The note stayed in my mind all day. Marina left for her flight before sunrise. I heard the quiet pad of her heels on the hallway floor and the soft click of the door shutting behind her. I expected the silence to bring relief, freedom even, but it didn't. If anything, the house felt heavier without her in it, colder. I walked through it slowly that morning, Benny at my side, wondering how someone could leave such an echo behind. I followed the list to the letter. Morning walk at 8 a.m. sharp. 1 scoop of food, half a carrot. Thermostat adjusted to 22 degrees Celsius by noon. It was strange how satisfying it felt, ticking off tasks like I was earning invisible points. That afternoon, I vacuumed without being asked, folded the towels the way she had shown me before, took the recycling out even though it wasn't full. I didn't know why I was doing it. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just wanted her to come back and see how well I'd done. Maybe I wanted her approval. When I fed Benny that evening, I paused with the treat jar in my hand, staring at it. I remembered what she'd said. He knows how to beg, but he doesn't need encouragement. The words replayed in her voice, soft and firm. I put the jar back without opening it. That night, I found one of her robes hanging on the back of the bathroom door. Pale gray silk, slightly oversized, smelling faintly of her perfume. I slipped into it after my shower, unsure why I did it, only that I wanted to feel her presence again, even in the fabric. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, the robe brushing just past my thighs, loosely tied at the waist, collarbone bare. The sight made something stir deep in my stomach. The robe stayed on longer than it needed to. By the 3rd day, I had started looking forward to her texts. Short check-ins, always formal, but with a subtle undertone I couldn't quite decipher. How's Benny behaving? Let me know if you need anything. Don't forget the garden. I always responded quickly, always respectfully, always obediently. That evening, just after sunset, I was curled up on the couch with a blanket and a mug of tea, still wearing her robe. Benny was snoring beside me. I had just started a movie when the front door opened. I froze. She wasn't supposed to be back until the morning, but there she was, hair pinned back, blouse slightly wrinkled from travel, suitcase in hand. "Hey," she said casually, stepping inside and setting her bag down. I thought you were coming back tomorrow." She smiled faintly. "Change of plans. Got on an earlier flight." I scrambled to sit upright, tugging the blanket tighter around me. I didn't realize. Her gaze dropped to the robe, then returned to my face. "Comfortable?" My cheeks flushed. "I can change. I didn't mean to." "It's fine." Her voice was quiet, almost amused. "You look good in it." I didn't know what to say to that. She walked past me toward the kitchen, heels clicking softly, and opened the fridge. Her fingers trailed lightly over the note still taped there. "You followed the list." "I tried," I said quickly. Yeah, every point she turned, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Even the part about the carrot slices? Yes. She tilted her head slightly, smiling. "Obedient girl." The words landed in me like a soft slap. Sharp, hot, familiar. Something about the way she said them made my spine straighten and my skin buzz. "Come here," she said. I rose slowly, unsure, crossing the room until I stood just a few feet from her. She reached out and gently fixed the neckline of the robe, pulling it slightly tighter. Her fingers grazed my collarbone, the touch feather-light. It's nice, isn't it? Having rules, knowing what's expected of you. I swallowed. Yeah, I guess it is. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. Then she stepped back. I'm going to change, she said. Pour me a glass of wine, would you? One finger, short of full. I nodded. Yes, of course. As she turned to leave the room, her voice floated back toward me. And take your time with it. I want to see if you follow instructions just as well, without supervision. She disappeared down the hall, leaving me standing in her kitchen, heart pounding, hands shaking just slightly as I reached for the wine bottle. I had come here to watch her dog, but somehow I was following her rules like they were the only thing that made sense, and I didn't want to stop, and I knew there was much yet to come. The wine glass sat on the marble countertop, filled just to the line she'd requested the night before. One finger short of full. I had measured it twice before setting it down, telling myself I was being cautious, but really, I just didn't want to disappoint her. When Marina returned, she was no longer in the sharp, structured clothing I was used to. She'd changed into a deep charcoal satin slip, the kind that barely touched the skin when she moved. It skimmed her thighs and left her shoulders bare, with one loose strap constantly falling out of place. Her hair, usually swept into a sleek twist or bun, was down now, cascading over one shoulder in soft, effortless waves. The moment she walked into the kitchen, the air shifted. My stomach tightened. She noticed the wine glass before she noticed me. Or maybe she'd noticed me first and just didn't show it. Either way, she picked it up, inspected the pour, and took a delicate sip. Perfect, she murmured, her eyes finally meeting mine. I opened my mouth to say something. Maybe a nervous joke or some weak apology for being in her robe again, but the words stalled somewhere in my throat. You've gotten very comfortable here, she said instead, voice smooth, almost indulgent. I gave a small laugh, suddenly unsure how to stand, where to put my hands. I didn't mean to overstep, I've just been following the instructions. She raised a brow. To the letter. I nodded. Of course. She stepped closer. Including the part where you don't feed him table scraps? I haven't even given him a single bite. I swear, her lips twitched. Good girl. That phrase again. She said it too easily now, like it already belonged to me. And maybe it did. Marina didn't look away as she took another sip of wine. She moved past me, the fabric of her slip brushing lightly against my arm, and gestured toward the couch. Come sit with me. I followed her like I didn't have a choice. And honestly, maybe I didn't want one. The couch was warm where she'd just sat down, the space between us small but electric. She handed me my own glass of wine, filled halfway. I hadn't asked for any, but it felt right. Like this, too, was part of the script she was writing for me without saying a word. We sat in silence for a while, the television flickering in the background, playing a movie neither of us was really watching. Benny snored softly on the rug beneath our feet. I kept glancing sideways, catching glimpses of her bare shoulder, the soft dip of her collarbone, the curve of her thigh beneath the silk hem. She sipped slowly, turning to me at last. You don't ask a lot of questions, do you? I blinked. Number I wasn't sure I was supposed to. Her head tilted slightly, amused. That's an interesting answer. I flushed. I mean, I didn't want to be rude or assume anything. I never said you were assuming. Her fingers reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. In fact, I think you're being very respectful. I swallowed. I'm trying to be. Her eyes lingered on me for a long, quiet moment. Do you like being told what to do, Riley? The question hit harder than I expected. I didn't know how to respond, but my body did. My shoulders tensed, my fingers curled slightly around the stem of the wine glass. She noticed. Have you ever let someone take control of you before? She asked, voice softer now, more intimate. I shook my head. Not like this. But you want to. It wasn't really a question. Yes. The admission slipped out before I could take it back, and once it was out, I felt a strange relief, like I'd finally said the thing I hadn't been able to name. Marina leaned in, her lips brushing so close to my ear that goosebumps rose across my neck. If I take control, she whispered, you don't get to keep one foot out the door. I don't play halfway. My chest rose and fell faster now. I set the wine glass down carefully. I understand. Do you? She asked, her hand resting on my knee now. Because once we cross that line, I will expect you to follow every word I say. I'll expect you to listen, to obey. I met her gaze. I want that. She searched my face, her thumb brushing lightly against the inside of my knee. Not tonight, she said at last, leaning back again. You're not ready. Why not? Because I want you restless, she said with a small, knowing smile. I want you lying awake, thinking about what it would feel like if I said, now. And just like that, she stood, collected our wine glasses, and walked them into the kitchen without another word. The silk of her slip shimmered under the hallway light as she disappeared from view. I sat there, stunned, aroused, confused, and desperate for something I couldn't even define. When she returned, she paused in the doorway, resting one hand against the frame. Go to bed, Riley. I rose immediately. Yes, Marina. Her eyes gleamed in the low light. Good girl. I walked back to the guest room on shaky legs, heart pounding loud in my chest. My skin buzzed with the ghost of her touch, her words echoing in my head like commands I hadn't yet earned. I lay in bed that night wearing her robe again, the sheets cool against my feverish skin, my thighs pressing tight together with need I didn't dare relieve. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. All I could think about was her voice, the way she said not tonight, and how badly I wanted her to say now. This wasn't about the dog anymore, and maybe it never had been. And I knew this was just the beginning. By the fourth night, obedience had stopped feeling like a choice. It was baked into the way I moved through the house, how I poured her wine without asking, how I straightened the throw pillows after she left the room. Every tiny task felt like a secret test, and I wanted to pass. Desperately. I wanted to earn her gaze, her touch, her approval. The day had passed in a blur. Marina worked from home, taking calls from her office while I kept to myself. I cleaned more than necessary, dusted places no one would ever notice. She barely spoke to me, but every time she passed by, I could feel the heat of her presence behind me like sunlight filtering through a window. She didn't touch me, didn't tease, and somehow that restraint undid me more than anything else. That evening, just as I stepped out of the shower, there was a soft knock at the bathroom door. I left something for you on the bed, she said. Her voice was calm, smooth as ever. Put it on. Meet me in the living room when you're ready. I opened the door slowly once I was sure she was gone, heart hammering in my chest. On the bed lay a black silk slip, simple, short, impossibly soft. Beside it, a folded note in the same delicate handwriting as her fridge instructions. No bra, no underwear, hair down, come barefoot, don't make me wait. The breath left my lungs in one shaky exhale. I followed her instructions exactly. When I stepped into the living room, she was already there, seated in the armchair by the window, legs crossed, wine glass in hand. She was wearing a fitted robe this time, deep burgundy, tied loosely at the waist. Her hair was pinned back again, neat and regal, like she hadn't spent the entire week unraveling me piece by piece. She looked up from her glass and let her gaze drift over me slowly, deliberately, like she had every right to take her time. Turn around, she said softly. I did. Good. She set her wine down and stood, her bare feet soundless on the hardwood floor. She approached slowly, each step more measured than the last. When she finally reached me, she stood behind me for a moment without touching me, her breath grazing the back of my neck. Then her fingers gently moved my hair to one side. I told you I wanted you restless, she whispered. Did you lie awake last night, Riley? Yes, I breathed. Her fingers traced down my spine, feather light through the silk, thinking about what would happen if I said that now. Yes. And do you still want it? More than anything. Yes. Her hands slid around my waist, pulling me gently back against her. Her lips brushed my neck, and I nearly melted on the spot. Then listen carefully, she murmured. You will do exactly as I say. No hesitation, no second guessing. If I tell you to stop, you stop. If I tell you to speak, you speak. Otherwise, you're quiet. Understood? I nodded. She stepped around me, tilting my chin upward with one finger. Use your words. Yes, Marina. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Good girl. Then she kissed me. It wasn't tentative or gentle. It was deep, consuming, full of pent-up hunger and unspoken things. Her hands cupped my face, then trailed down my sides, thumbs pressing into the curve of my hips as she walked me backward toward the couch. She sat first, then guided me into her lap, my knees on either side of hers, the silk slipping higher up my thighs. Her hands rested on them like she was claiming territory. She kissed me again, slower this time, letting her fingers explore, test, and possess. "Keep your eyes on me," she whispered, slipping a strap off my shoulder. "Hands to yourself." I obeyed. Her touch moved under the silk, across bare skin, warm and confident. She explored me like she had all the time in the world, every pass of her fingers calculated, watching me react with parted lips and flushed cheeks. She teased the edge of pleasure again and again, pulling back just before it spilled over, leaving me aching, breathless. She said softly. I hesitated, lips trembling. She met my eyes. I said, "Beg." "Please," I whispered. "Well, please don't stop." "Please what?" "Please touch me," I gasped. "Please let me come." The words tasted like surrender, and she rewarded them. Her hands slid between my thighs, her fingers finally moving with intention. I cried out, my forehead falling to her shoulder, my body shaking under the pressure of her control. "Good girl," she murmured. "That's it. Let go." And I did. My release came in waves, full and helpless. She held me through all of it, her arm tight around my waist, her lips brushing my temple. I collapsed into her chest, panting, dazed, floating somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief. When I finally looked up, she was watching me, soft now, almost tender. "Still want to obey me?" she asked. I nodded, breathless, more than ever. She pulled me in again, resting her chin on my shoulder. "Then stay." And I did. That night, we didn't sleep in separate rooms. She pulled me under her covers, spooned me with her arm across my waist, and whispered instructions that had nothing to do with obedience, just warmth, closeness, the quiet promise that this wasn't over. I'd come here to watch her dog, but now I'd do anything she told me to. I woke to warmth, soft sheets, a steady breath against my neck, and Marina's arm draped across my waist like she'd always belonged there. For a few precious seconds, I let myself believe it was real, that this was our routine, that this was allowed. But then I opened my eyes and reality settled in like cold air against bare skin. It wasn't my bed, it wasn't my house, and it certainly wasn't supposed to be her. The room was still, quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock on her nightstand. Her bedroom smelled like jasmine and old books. A thin morning light crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow over everything, including the silk slip I'd worn last night, now crumpled on the floor beside her bed. I lay there, unmoving, afraid that if I shifted even slightly, the spell would break. She stirred behind me a few minutes later, her arm tightening as she pressed closer, nuzzling the space just behind my ear. "Good morning." Her voice was deeper now, sleep-warm, low, and intimate. "Morning," I whispered. Neither of us moved right away. There was something fragile about the quiet, like we were walking barefoot across glass and pretending not to feel it crack. Eventually, she exhaled and rolled onto her back, arms sliding away. I turned just enough to watch her stretch, her robe slipping open at the collarbone, revealing nothing scandalous, yet everything tempting. She noticed me, looking, and smiled. "You're still here." "You told me to stay." "I did," she said, sitting up slowly, "and you followed, as usual." She reached for her robe, tying it tighter, then padded barefoot toward the kitchen. I stayed in bed for a moment, hugging the sheets to my chest, the weight of what had happened pressing harder now that daylight exposed it. I found her minutes later at the counter, pouring coffee like nothing had changed. Her expression was unreadable again. Cool, composed, all that commanding grace back in place. Last night's softness was folded away somewhere I couldn't reach. She handed me a mug without a word. "Thanks," I murmured. We drank in silence, and I hated how badly I wanted her to look at me the way she had the night before. Finally, she spoke. "You did well, Riley." The compliment made my heart skip. "So, That wasn't just a one-time thing? She hesitated, then, I don't do things halfway. If I didn't want it, it wouldn't have happened. But? I asked, because I could feel the but hanging in the air between us. But that doesn't mean this is something we can play pretend about in daylight, she said, gently but firmly. I'm your friend's mother. I'm not someone you're supposed to fall into bed with after dog sitting. My chest ached. Too late. She finally looked at me, really looked, and there it was again, the crack beneath her polished surface. Riley, I'm not asking for promises, I said quickly. I know how this looks, I know what it is, but I'm not pretending anymore. She set her coffee down and leaned against the counter, folding her arms. You're young. I'm not a child. I didn't say you were. Her eyes softened, but there's a difference between following orders and knowing what you want outside of them. I know what I want. She smiled faintly, sadly. You think you do. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. She crossed the room, placing a hand lightly on my cheek. This, whatever this is, it isn't safe, for you or for me. I don't care. Well, I do. I closed my eyes, leaning into her touch for a second before she let go. I'll finish the week, I said after a long pause. I'll feed Benny, water the garden, do everything you asked, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't feel something. I'm not asking you to pretend. Then what are you asking? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, picked up her mug, and walked into the living room without another word, leaving me alone with cold coffee and a heart that was no longer playing by her rules. I told myself I was just there to watch her dog, that it was simple, temporary, safe. But now I can't stop replaying the way she looked at me in the dark, how she whispered instructions like secrets I wasn't supposed to hear. Maybe she was right. Maybe I don't know what I want. Or maybe I just want her, no matter how wrong it is. So tell me, was I just a distraction? Or did I make her lose control too? Let me know in the comments, because I can't stop wondering if she's still thinking about me when the lights go out.